to film the 50th Curmudgeon in the Cellar on YouTube. Apparently something upgraded and it didn't like my camera anymore, and so I did it, and it was blank, and so I redid it and it was blank. And so my very good friend Zach Glazer, thank you again, Zach, got on Skype with me, and we figured out what was wrong and got it working. Speaking of Zach again, I want to give a shout out for some friends of mine. Uncle Matt's RPG Studio. Imagine the hell out of it. And he has a Patreon address underneath. Also, Matt Finch is the author of Swords and Wizardry. One of the, I don't know what you call them, but I don't mean any insult when I say one of the knockoffs. One of the books that got around all the legalities and everything and redid a very interesting, very fun game system. And Matt is a zany dungeon master, or whatever he calls himself. If you've ever at a con and he's running a game, you got to get in there, because they have he and Jim Webb get in there, and there'll be 18 people playing in the game, and the two of them are standing up on chairs and directing the activities, and it's wild. And he does this RPG studio thing on Facebook and also with Zach Glazer and Jim Wampler, and he also does a live game stream, whatever, for his campaign. So check it out sometime. Now we'll get into the rest of this. Two things. Number one, if it seems like I start sinking out of the picture, it's because I am. The hydraulics on my chair are going wonky on me, and for no reason at all, I'll just start sinking down. And if it gets too bad, I'll ask you to excuse my back as I reach over and straighten it back up. The other thing is, having done this already twice, I hope this doesn't sound like some kind of canned patter. All right, the first thing, okay, there was a misunderstanding in my last one about whether you play the new rules or the correct rules that are new to you, or do you continue playing? Well, first of all, I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. Though I've been playing with these guys for 40 years, this game is we've only played we've played 4 or 5 times, and we were missing little things here and there, and so we got together and we played it again with the correct interpretations of the rules. The game is Scythe, SCYTHE. I think it's one of the most innovative board games that's come out since the first Ticket to Ride. Never ever plays the same. Fascinating, very simple mechanics. Very, very, very interesting game. It has several different add-ons, supplements, call them what you will, expansions. Yeah, we call them expansions in board games. That's right. And the friend member of our group that owns it has one of them, and the rest of us have decided we're going to pony up for the other two, and we'll spend all fall into the winter if we have to master this game, because we find it absolutely fascinating. I suggest you check it out. And we played the new rules. It made the game much more interesting. There were some subtleties we'd overlooked. And so in this case, forget what I said last week. Play the rules the way they're supposed to be. And then if you don't like them, then you house rule them. So, okay, we got that out of the way. Well, those of you who liked the Sunday last week get another Sunday treat this week. Sorry about that. Those of you that are used to it on Saturday. Again, I have seen my new intro. I'll have it on. It will premiere on Curmudgeon 51. And I think you'll find it amusing. I certainly did. I have a link to it now. I just got done looking at it before we started. Okay, as you were the author or the editor of Dragon Magazine for several years, you undoubtedly have seen many great works of literary fantasy art and met many talented artists. I recently got one of Larry Elmore's pieces. This particular piece has always had its effect on me, inspires me with character creations ever since I first saw it years ago. Are there any particular pieces of fantasy art that inspire you or motivate your imagination? First, let me explain. I'm not a real visual guy. When I was getting my master's in education, I learned about the different perceptions that go into involving and tactile and visual and oral and the various things. And I appreciate a neat piece of art or something that's done or whatever, but I don't go to art museums. Okay, that's just not my thing. So having said that, yes, there was a piece that inspired the hell out of me. It came out in 1973 when I was just getting to Carbondale, and it was by Frank Frazetta. And I'm going to show you a bad copy of it because apparently I'm running out of black ink toner. One more thing I can't afford, but there it is. We all know the Death Dealer. And there's many, many other pictures in which he appears. But this, I believe, was the very first, certainly the first one I saw, and it had a profound effect upon me. And it also stirred the first inklings of writing fantasy in my little brain because I was wondering, wow, I wonder how he got to be that way. I wonder what his backstory is. The Death Dealer, is that necessarily evil? If you are I'm sorry, I'm swelling back and forth, making you dizzy. If you are the executioner for the king, you're not doing anything illegal. Was he once a famous headsman who went rogue? Or yeah, I all these ideas, it spurred me. So yes, that picture particularly spurred my imagination. And when I wrote an adventure, don't even remember which one it is. Anyway, the lower level holds a dead lich in a force field of magic, and I patterned the dead lich after the Death Dealer, and just saw him, on his horse, which was actually a nightmare or a hell steed or I don't know, whatever I made it. It was awful. So that piece of art had a big effect on me. I've seen others, other pieces that have moved me. Certainly, I'm not immune to a visual representation, but I've never seen another picture where I thought, gee, I wonder what the backstory is on that and what I could write about it. So that's as honest as I can be. Next up. Oh, well, okay. This comment was basically what you are saying. To introduce newbies to the game, use basic D&D. Not exactly. That's not what I'm saying. If you're happy playing Swords and Wizardry, or whatever you play, though I think, well, Pathfinder, any RPG that you want to introduce new people to, just simple it, tone it down, give them a simple objective, something they can remain focused on, and you can keep them focused on. Don't attack them with a pack of dire wolves, for God's sakes. Attack them with a pack of wild dogs that they can, have a reasonable chance of success in driving off without any horrible wounds. And then, don't get into rabies and that kind of stuff. That can come later. Make it more simple when you want to introduce them. And the gameplay flow, if it works right, will get them interested to try more. Give them those 6 numbers and those 6 words next to them, and give them a 3-minute briefing on what all those 6 words and 6 numbers mean. Strength, how big a rock can you pick up? Dexterity, what can you hit with that rock? How far can you throw a rock and hit something? And just give them a constitution. How tough are you? Just, go boom, 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 boom. And then as things play, Somebody comes up with a great idea, you go, and what's your intelligence again? Geez, that sounds like, and so you go from there. And then you learn, oh, I'm dumb. So what can I do with this dumb person? And maybe it's an inspiration to increase their intelligence scores by doing quests, whatever. But the thing is, keep it simple. Don't overwhelm with numbers. Keep them rolling dice. Satisfy that tactile urge, that tactile simulation of the hands and the fingers. Keep them rolling dice. Keep them rolling dice. Keep them in the game. Keep them rolling dice so they feel like they're doing something. They're part of something going on. That's how I say. I don't care what system you use. Just make it a simple, easy first adventure. That's all. No magic that I can think of. Next thing was back to mapping. This individual says, I have pages and pages of maps from the old days, and recently I started an open table first edition AD&D to give new players a taste of the classic. I literally have a waiting list of players wanting in. We had 14 players one week show up. I'm going to stop there and say, boy, whatever you're doing right. If you got 14 people waiting on a list or showing up, then you need a partner. You need to find somebody in your campaign that you never argue with, that you never hassle with, that you respect their skills, and say, hey, give me a hand here, can you? It'll make them a better player. Might encourage them to become your relief DM sometime. And you'll get those people while they're still interested before they buy that next PS4 game. Get them in. Get their feet wet. Splash a little water on them. And congratulations on stirring up that kind of interest. All right, now to go on. We had an old-time player join us, and he lectured them on the importance of maps. I had to refer the table to your vid from last week. Well, the old-time player probably means somebody my age. But yeah, and there's another reason to have maps. Not just to beat feet and get out of trouble now, but later on. Gary Gygax's Greyhawk was an enormous, multi-level, multi-layered castle, and it had areas. The orc wing, the goblin wing, the fountain wing, whatever. And if you had an accurate map from the top, and you said, okay, we're going to such and such an intersection here where the fountain is, any good DM's going to say, great. And unless there's something wandering along the way, you go. Now, if you're playing in a tight time frame, adventure to adventure, the only thing that could probably have happened is something's wandered by when you're there, bad luck, boo-hoo. If you're playing long time lapses, something else might have moved in. But having that map, it's my belief that any DM that wants to play more and do less rote mechanic will say, great, go to that intersection where the fountain is. We'll start from there. Now, how do you find new areas? Once in a while, the DM may go, well, okay, I'll let you go as far as, and points to a spot on the map, and maybe something's happened. Maybe one of those formerly empty rooms, the doors bulged into the hallway, and there's rubble and strewn, and you look up in there, and there's a tunnel somewhere or whatever. But have that map for when you want it, and it'll advantage, when it's to your advantage, good grief. Anything that you get 20, 30, maybe 40 minutes more playing time rather than going, okay, we're going to go 65 northeast, and then we're going to bend slightly to the north. We'll go another 70 yards, and along the way, we'll pass 4 doors that we already know are empty. Who wants to do that when you can go get into the swing, the swing of things, and start swinging those broad axes? In the past, you discussed the origins of the beholder. While we are on the subject of alien monsters, do you recall who came up with the gelatinous cube? Okay, what I'm going to tell you is, as far as I recall, I got this information from Rob Kuntz, who was Gary's relief DM. And Rob told me that Gary did. Here's why. Remember earlier I referenced the fact that there were wings. Well, okay, you're going down there and you're cleaning out the goblin wing. Well, there's bound to be a lot of dead bodies. And Gary invented the cube and the purple worm to crawl up and down the halls when nobody's there and eat and absorb everything. So the next time you look down the hall, there was no visual clues. There was no skeleton of the dwarf that was 300 yards short of where you needed to get to. All your visual clues were gone, which I thought was brilliant. And the areas were reused for that reason. Plus, it's a horrible thing to run into, and if you get stuck in it, you're just screwed. As far as I know, according to what I believe Rob told me, Gary invented it and the worm for the purposes of scavenging up the dungeons. Now, if for another way to go about that, pardon me, if you go and look at Frank Mentzer's Lich Dungeon, he has sanitation crews. I think they have ordinances or uniforms, and they have those they have little things that they put in at the end of the under construction and under cleaning, little traffic barriers, stop signs, stuff, and a regular schedule and all this kind of stuff. So that's how the Lich, whose dungeon it is, keeps it clean. With Gary, he just put mindless absorbing things and let them wander around and clean stuff up. So that's what I know of the origin of the gelatinous cube. Okay, next topic. Person wrote in and said that of his 5 players, three out of them have been affected by lycanthropy. Did I ever use it or vampirism in my games? Or what do I think about it? Well, number one, I never used vampirism except as it was appropriate. I didn't want my players all turning into vampires. When it unfortunately happened, and it happened twice, I believe, in my old Carbondale group, the group just turned on him and did what was needed to destroy a vampire. And it was, the guy whose player it was kind of said, yeah, okay, I understand. Because, no party's going to want to have a member in them who, hey, Bob, how's it going? And leans on your shoulder and drains you out of a life level. So, no, I didn't. Now I've had minor demons who could do things, like this, but that was in adventures that I've written, some of which have not been published. Someday when I die, all these unpublished adventures are going to be worth tons of money. Nah, I wish. Be nice for my wife. But I have used lycanthropy. Not wittingly, to be fair. In the days when it was just the 3 books and you're generating a dungeon, I had an occasion that something came up, an encounter came up with some weird bears in bear form. And one of the party, excuse me, I got a oil the tonsils here. One of the party got bit, and it was a very, very small chance of him becoming a werebear, and he did. And there were ways to try to learn to control it, and he did. Now, it took a little while. The first time he ruined a good set of armor when he just freaked out and went all bearish on everybody. And the second time, he kept it under control, but by this time he's wearing leather. And eventually, he became the berserker in the party. He carefully take off his leather armor, take off his boots and his helmet and everything, and lay his weapons down, because he was also a fairly formidable fighter. Because when he was a bear, he just killed stuff right and left. And he'd go, all right, you open the door and I'll go in all bearish. And geez, he was a juggernaut. And only one time that I recall, and that's only because that was something I determined in advance, he got down to like 2 or 3 hit points as a human. And that's when he turned the first time, because the werebear had like 52 points or something like that. It was like twice as strong as anybody in the party, or at least twice as strong as anybody in the party. And bad luck made him a lycanthrope. Good luck enabled him to learn to use it to his advantage. And if you stop and think about it, that's a dang formidable fighter. Because I made him the size of a big grizzly, a Kodiak-sized grizzly, when he changed. Not quite tall enough to bang his head on the standard issue, FEMA approved 10 by 10 corridors. Now, Crazy Neil, on the other hand, kept forgetting to take his stuff off before he polymarked himself, and he ruined a couple of sets of armor and ended up turning himself into dragon spam in a room too small to contain his body. But werebear. Now that's the other thing. To this day, I could not tell you that guy's name. In our old group, certain people had names hung on them. Now, other than Tom Wom, who was also in my game group in Carbondale, I was the oldest guy in the group. So there was kind of a deference pecking order type thing. But Hobbit became Hobbit, even though he was 6'1" or 6'2", because he played a Hobbit extremely well, and picked locks and did all kinds of hobbity little things before thieves were a big deal. Before I had Greyhawk, and Hobbit stayed Hobbit, Hogbait stayed Hogbait, Crazy Neil stayed Crazy Neil, Werebear was Werebear, and then there was Deathless Bob. And that's who they were, and that's what we called them, and there was no denigration involved there. And Werebear was a hell of a player. Just think about that, the ability to change into a Kodiak-sized grizzly. As I understand it, Kodiaks are some of the biggest grizzlies in North America. Let's see. Okay. This is kind of a combined thingy. Group ethics, do they always necessarily lead into an evil campaign? There was a horrified discussion on Facebook a few days because some of these player characters ate what they killed. If they killed a hobbit, they'd eat it. If they killed an elf, they'd eat it. And people were just horrified by it. Well, hey, it's their campaign. If their DM's okay with that, and the people they play with are okay with that, and he promises never to eat them, what's the problem? I mean, why not cook up a nice, fat, tasty goblin? Who says they have to taste like shit? Excuse me. Just joking there, really. But I don't, I personally would have a problem if they were killing for the purpose of eating sentient creatures. But if you were attacked by a troop of wild carnivorous apes and managed to kill a couple, so ram a steel spear up that ape's hiney out his mouth, put him on a fire, and roast him on a spit. I got no problem with that. Monkey meat's pretty tasty. I tried it. But every group's going to set their limits. Their squeamish limits, their ethical limits. The old conundrum: is it lawful good for a paladin to kill baby orcs? To which I've always said, nits breed lice. Of course, it's okay in my campaign, in my world. But hey, if yours says no, oh no, you don't want to do that, that's okay. That's how each group seems to establish their boundaries. And some boundaries are pretty loose, and some boundaries are pretty tight. It's the really loose ones that sometimes give me pause and wonder about how depraved can a campaign get. Case in point, back in the early mid-70s, when all the apazines, the fanzines were in vogue, out on the East Coast, those people got into all sorts of kinky stuff. And amongst adults, I don't care what adults do anywhere, okay, amongst themselves. And if they want to have girdles of sex change, okay, instead of, you think you're getting a girdle of strength or a girdle of agility, instead now you're a girl. And then there's other girdles that not only change your sex, but change your orientation. So you put on another girdle that you think is going to take away the first one, and now you're a woman that likes women. And we saw that as, well, no, we're not going there. All right, it was the 70s, things were opening up in that, but TSR was not opening up. And so we did not go there. I know of a campaign that took place in a penitentiary in the flyover part of the country. I know about it because I played with several of the players one time, not in the penitentiary. That's not a convention I make. And I got to talk about conventions later. Anyway, from what I was able to ascertain, they all played evil characters, and all they did was plan jobs. And the only reason they expanded the town was so they could have new places to rob. And hey, they were having fun. I don't condone that as a criminal primer on how to figure out how to start a gang. But if you recall, the very earliest Phineas Fingers were all dealing with a guild of thieves and criminal thieves and whatever. And so they just they took that ball and ran for about 4 touchdowns all at once. So campaigns getting evil. If that's your bag, that's fine. I don't condemn it. When Iron Wind Miniatures had a Kickstarter, when they restarted the Chaos Wars line, which you really ought to check out, and they've got another Chaos Wars Kickstarter just started where they're going to bring out some more of the old Chaos Wars and a whole new line of Dryads. So check it out, Iron Wind Miniatures. When they were doing their first one, I offered to write them an adventure from the bad side. So all the player characters are goblins and orcs, and they're off on a mission while the big battle's waging over here. They're sneaking off through the mountains to go rob a tomb of a dwarven lord. And they get to pick on a human caravan along the way that's very poorly protected. And some bugbears mess with them, and they get to slaughter and slay them. So basically, they get to get their evil on. And hey, I can understand that, playing like that once in a while. When I used to play Boot Hill, I used to like to play a badass. Yeah, sometimes I won the shootout and sometimes I lost, but that's why I was playing Boot Hill back then, or when I played Gunslinger, a very interesting old board game. And you'll notice I keep mentioning board games a lot because I cut my teeth on board games. And if you rank my chronology of gaming, it's board games, miniatures, role playing. And if you ranked my preferences and allures, they'd be the same. Board games, miniatures, role playing. My guys, my buddies, and I that have been playing, some of us since the '80s, don't play role playing. We play board games together. We're also social friends. We go to each other's houses for cookouts once a year, that kind of thing. And I don't think I did. It just I'm uncomfortable doing it. I had a home-based campaign here for a while, local campaign, and we had a couple of jerk-offs, wankers, in the game, and when I conveniently suspended it for convention season, it just never got back together again. Speaking of conventions, my next one's TotalCon. No, excuse me. I want to talk about TotalCon. TotalCon's in February out on the East Coast. It's a great convention. Total Confusion Game Convention. Check it out. My next con is Game Hole in Madison, Wisconsin. And before that, your job and mine is to get out and vote in the elections. Vote. If you're not happy with what's going on, vote. Change it. If you like what's going on, confirm it. More people didn't vote last election than did. Imagine if just 10% of those who didn't did on that incredibly tight election that we had. Vote, please. Don't forget to go check Uncle Matt. And I guess next week we hope to have the new intro. It's only 6 seconds long. Don't get your hopes up. Have a good one.